All right. All right, good job.
All right, I'm officially taking off my organizer hat and putting on a different hat. Thanks for letting me come and share tonight. So, I was hoping to have a couple of folks from the board come, but it's spring break. And everybody is off on beaches or traveling, and so I am here. And so I'm just talking a little bit about the South Como Co-op. One of my other passions that is happening right now. And so, I am just going to give kind of an overview of the work that we've been doing, what we'd like to do in the community. So I am part of a board of neighbors that started meeting about actually a year ago yesterday. We had 10 neighbors that met in at halftime to just talk about like how can we support small businesses in our community. We saw some that would try to get started and then wouldn't, and we were always kind of wondering what was going on and how we came together to see how could we support these businesses. Could we offer some grant help? Could we offer some small business consulting? Like what can we do to help these businesses come into our community, which we would love and be able to benefit from. And pretty quickly, we realized that a lot of what was happening in South Como was folks were buying up properties for relatively inexpensive, flipping them or putting some offices in them and making money by having businesses that came in that weren't necessarily community minded, which was fine, but were profitable. And so we realized pretty quickly that the best way for us to have like change happen in our community was to actually be able to purchase these buildings.
She shouldn't.
I am muted.
You're right.
Okay, we're good. Okay, to be able to purchase buildings in our community and be able to really keep them community minded and community focused. I am going to try to go through this as fast as I possibly can. I don't know how to shorten all we've learned in the last year down to like 15-20 minutes. So I'm just going to speed through this. So I did want to make sure that we put our website up there. We put our email address up there if you have any questions, like further questions about this. But I'm going to go through quite a bit in the next little bit. So the first thing I always like to talk about is like the fact that we interact with co-ops all the time, whether we know it or not. So there are, you know, retail, financial, worker, housing co-ops, and then there's community investment co-ops or real estate investment co-ops, depending on what you call them. And so I like to talk about this mostly because there is a structure around co-ops. We are registered as a business cooperative. There's legal, there's all of these regulations around cooperatives. So sometimes, depending on how familiar you are or aren't with cooperatives, it feels a little like this rogue thing. And the more that we've dug into it, we've realized, no, there is, Minnesota has a whole structure around cooperatives that our bylaws, our articles of incorporation have to align with in order for us to do what we're doing. And so what a cooperative is a business that's owned and controlled by its members. And the members benefit from its services. So normally with the business, you have investors that go into the business, but they might not be the ones who are consuming the product. This process is where you become an owner of this business and you then benefit from this business. So co-ops prioritize their members and the community because it's benefiting their members and the community. So an investment co-op then is kind of the same thing. It's member owned and democratically operated. So when you become a member of an investment co-op, you get a vote. It doesn't matter how much you put in, everybody gets the same vote. And we always talk in the co-op about how like how that would look if Amazon operated the same way, or if some of these bigger businesses operated the same way, where their members really got, or the people who invested in it really got a say in how they are owned and operated. How would that change the world that we live in? So we're trying to do that on a micro scale in our neighborhood. So it also just eliminates outside investors benefiting from things that are happening in our neighborhood. So they're democratically member owned and operated. They're community focused. Like I gave for that example, a lot of people come in, it's not that they're wanting to ruin a community, but the way that you can make a profit is not necessarily going to be community minded. So they help strengthen the community by pooling the resources. So not just money, like our money, but also grants and loans that are community focused grants and loans. And this allows the community to make the decisions about what is happening, what businesses are invited in, what values are happening through the businesses that are in the community. And then in the end, it's sharing profit and power and also the risk too. So where many of us might not be able to just put $100,000 down on a business and be able to do what needs to be done. This allows like a normal person to be able to really invest in their community. I'm just gonna pause for a second. Shevrik, are you in there that you might be able to let people in out of the waiting room? Okay. And so the profits that happen are either reinvested back into the community or they're shared among the members. And we'll talk about how shared profit works a little bit later on. And so it allows more people to be able to be involved and have a say in what's going on instead of just a few people who might have a lot of money that they could invest in something like this. So that's investment co-ops in general. The South Como Co-op works in a specific way. If you get done with this and you're like, this isn't the way I would do it, there are a lot of co-ops, especially in the Twin Cities. There are a lot of co-ops getting started. I'd encourage you to look through some of them because all of them are going to operate a little different. All of them are going to have different values and missions and visions, but each of them on an umbrella, big scale, works the same way. So the way that the South Como Investment Co-op works is that we pool community resources to purchase vacant and underutilized properties and match them with businesses that are relevant to community needs. So we are focused on commercial properties instead of residential properties, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And so that's the work that we're looking to do right now in the South Como community. I'm going to go through each of these pretty quickly. Again, just trying to get you an overview of what's going on. So the community resources we're talking about are those membership shares. So our membership share is $500. And that there are scholarships available, and that allows you to have a say in what happens in the co-op. This gives a way for community members to invest in local property, earn returns, and have a say in the co-op's future by getting a vote in the co-op. The preferred shares are offered to members periodically. Ours are based on when we have a property or a project that we're looking at doing. We would offer preferred shares, and this allows for a further investment. This is only offered to members, and these increase in values as properties generate income. We'll get into that a little bit later, making them a good way to build long-term return. So this is kind of the extra thing. You don't get more of a vote because you do a preferred share, but this is how we are able to get the bulk of our funding for something like a down payment or being able to really pay down instead of taking out bigger loans. Another way that we work with this, a huge thing that allows us to keep our lease rates really low is going to be community grants and partnerships. So we're already working with the local fund, we're working with the MCCD, which is the Metropolitan Consortium for Community Developers, MCCD, and we're working with them to be able to, again, cut down some of those overhead costs. So they are able to provide grants for things like pre-development, so like the lawyers, the environmental assessments, things like that, renovation, and even like operations. We're getting quite a bit of technical assistance through a grant to help us really build a solid foundation. So obviously, since these don't have to be paid back, these are things that can kind of absorb some of that cost to be able to offer lower leases or some of the other benefits that co-ops can provide. And then the last thing is just different loan options. There are specific shared ownership loans that are more flexible for investments, and they also usually have a lower interest rate, which is huge right now, and then or low or no penalties if we want to pay back our loan early, which like a traditional loan, you get quite a bit of penalties if you pay it back early. So those are the community resources. So again, if I was doing this by myself, I would need to have a big chunk of money that I could do this. Usually most of that is going to be taken out in loans. And then my goal is going to be to pay back those loans, right? As a business person, our goal is to get the loans as little as we possibly can so that we're able to be a lot more flexible with our properties. And then the profit is able to go right back to the members, to the community that it is serving. So we have these community resources. We're looking for vacant and underutilized properties. We always like to put it out there when we talk to people about where we're looking at properties. This is on our website. It's kind of small here. But this is kind of the area we're looking in. A lot of the properties we've been looking at have been focused around the Como Front Dale intersection and just kind of the spokes going out of that. So on Como Front and Dale. Most of the properties we've been looking at have been between $250,000 and about $400,000. So we're not looking at absolutely huge properties. And most of them are commercial, some of them are mixed use. So some of them we might be able to provide some like affordable housing along with it, which would be really great. We both look at vacant. Right now, the local fund that we're working with is specifically for vacant and registered vacant properties. But we're also looking at properties that, you know, maybe they're a commercial space that isn't being used. Maybe there's renters on top and that's been providing income for the house, but we'd love to have a small business in the bottom of it. And so what's nice about it is, as a board, we do look at all of the buildings that come onto the market in our area. We've seen them all. We're running around in all the basements and attics and stuff like that. And it's been really cool as we've talked to them small businesses to be able to kind of match what we have with what are the things that businesses are looking for. So right now we have just been doing a lot of just scoping out what's available and how can businesses use these properties? How do we best prepare these properties for businesses to use them? So kind of putting these two things together, kind of an example of how this would work. This is an example, this is not real. I'm putting lots of stars by the example. So say we have a business that's like, or we have a building that's $350,000. We have $100,000 in renovations and $50,000 in pre-development costs. If I was just buying it for myself, that would be a $500,000 project. I would put a little bit down, but mostly be doing it in loans or putting my own money into it. What we're doing as a co-op is we're able to kind of break it down into different funds. So we would offer preferred shares and be able to get as much as we could through that so that we would have as little loans as possible. These purple ones would be any grants that we could take advantage of. So like the pre-development grants or the acquisition grants, or renovation grant. And then say there's another one available like the neighborhood star or something like that, that we could be able to get some renovation funds for. Then what's left, we would take out in like an MCCD shared ownership loan, which again has a lot more flexibility. And so in the end, you know, our loan would be $100,000 instead of maybe $400,000 or something like that. And that would be able to then absorb the extra cost that we could really offer it to small businesses for a really great price, especially businesses that share our community vision and our community goals. And so it took us a long time to figure out how that all came together. So this is actually a slide that's been 6 months in the working to try to figure out like, how does this actually work in order to be able to build a stronger community and an affordable community. So I'm going to talk a little bit, I got to look at the time. Okay, I got to talk a little bit about like how profit sharing works. We talked about the membership shares. So these membership shares pay annual dividends when the cooperative profits. That means like if you're part of a bank co-op, you get the little dividend amounts of money that are put into your account. That happens the same way here. You would get a check annually with the dividends when the cooperative profits. And then the preferred shares increase in value. So that's a longer return, and then you can sell it back to the co-op. And that's how you profit off of those preferred shares. They're all based on the co-op's goals and priorities. The members are the ones that set the goal. So if our first few years, the goal is to have some reserves if a water heater breaks or if we need to get a new roof, like that is what the membership decides. Or they might say we're going to put 2% into the reserves and 3% are going to go back to the members and profits. That's decided by the members and then enacted by the board. Usually it takes about 5 to 7 years for cooperatives to become profitable. So we like to always say like, this is a community investment first and a way to build profits later. And so we want people to know that, because a lot of times we are going to be prioritizing people and the community over the profits. And so you have to know, this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is not something where you are going to like make it big. This is something where you're investing in community. And when we want the businesses to work, we want this all to work. When that happens, then we're able to share that profit in our community. And then a lot of people ask, like, members' financial risk. Your risk is limited to your investment in the cooperative. You're never going to be asked to pay more. You know, it is a cooperative setup, so therefore we have cooperative insurance and things like that to kind of be able to spread out that risk among or put that risk on the corporation, but because you're investing a little, your investment is the thing that is your risk. That makes sense. All right. So then the last thing I just want to go over is how we figure out what's relevant to community needs. So we've been out in the community, talking to people, tabling, we'll be door knocking soon. There's a, you know, talking to our neighbors, to just say, like, where are there gaps in our community offerings? What stops you from shopping locally? What do community members want to see in there? And then in the end, we want to know, how do we encourage these in our co-op owned buildings? So one of the coolest things about this is that when you have a co-op owned building, you're able to write some of these values into your leases. So if we decide, like, here are some of the results when we have, so if we decide that affordability is one of our values, we want our community to be able to afford what it is that you are selling. We might say, hey, if what you're offering is at this percentage affordability or below this amount, like, we can give you a discount on your rent. Because we know that they're losing by offering an affordable thing. Or if it's environmentally, or what do we say, eco-friendly practices, we might say, if you are able to have all compostable things or reusable things, we can offer you a discount, because we know that that's harder for you as a business. So being able to really get involved with the community, we have a survey that we put out on our website that we do at all of our events, to just talk through what is it that we as a community value, and how do we turn this around and really help the businesses that we work with live out the things that our community values. So we encourage you to take the survey. It's, like I said, on our website. There's a QR code here also. So those are, let's go back. So those are the three things. We pool community resources. We're looking for vacant and underutilized properties, and then we want to be able to be relevant to community needs and values. Those are the main things we're working on right now. We're building a good foundation for doing that. We're building up our membership so that we can do that. But one of the side things that has come out of this was kind of our original goal in all of this, which was working with the small businesses that are already in our community. And so we were able to host a small business listening session and kind of hear, like, what do you love about being here? What are the challenges about being in the South Como and North End area? And it was great. It was absolutely wonderful to see, like, what is the business ecosystem that we're going into. Through that listening session, we ended up having a group of businesses that are now meeting regularly to look and see how they can build up our like the South Como North End business relationships. So they're working on, like, wayfinding things, they're working on placemaking, like put signage, you know, really building a destination around the Como Frontdale intersection. We're working on getting them grants and figuring out, like, how we can really get that going. So that was kind of it ended up being a byproduct of some of the work we were doing with small businesses. But our goal is that they can come together and be able to build up the community, so that when we're inviting small businesses in, that's a benefit of being able to become part of the South Como, you know, business community. One of the possibilities that we see as the co-op is to be able to provide things such as grant writing, business consulting, fiscal sponsorship, and maybe even like micro loan programs to be able to continue to help the businesses that are already here or the ones that come in through our buildings. And then in the future, we just love to see a network where it's something that people want to be a part of and come into this area. All right. Just a little, one more slide. So kind of the next steps, how can you get involved? I gave an overview of what it is that we're doing. And so kind of what are some ways that people can get involved? Obviously becoming a member. The more membership we have, the more we're able to kind of move forward with some of these goals that we have of being able to look at and purchase buildings and build out our business association and different aspects of that. The application is on our website. So you just go on, you fill that out, and then we'll get in touch with you for next steps. Like I said, there are scholarships available. So if that's something you need, you just click it on the application and we'll get in touch with you about how to take advantage of that. Right now, our main communication is going to be through our newsletter. And so again, that's on the website. You can sign up on the bottom of the page. That will get you events, volunteer needs, our work days when we have them, and then any preferred share offerings that are out there. We are going into neighborhoods. So if you have some neighbors, friends, family, and you'd like to have us come and do like a little info session, or just even table or just come in and talk to folks, we're totally up for doing that. We're always looking for input on properties that we might want to look at, even if it's one you walk by every day that you're like, what is going on there? We have our broker reach out to them and say like, hey, we'd love to promote what you're doing or help with what you're doing. Or if it's a property that would be a potential property for us, we'll talk to them about that too. And then if you do become a member, we do have a few spots left on our board. We are very much a working board, and I realize that I am talking to a board. So for those of you who need something else to do, we are a working board. So every meeting you go home with 5 or 6 extra things that you are working on, but it has been really fun. It's a really great group of people with a huge variety of expertise. So it's been really fun to work with them. And then in the future, we're going to be providing skills for small business support. So if you have a skill that would work and that you'd be willing to offer at a discounted rate or be willing to work with grants to provide these skills for our small businesses, we would love to hear from you and kind of get that set up before we start working with businesses, or volunteering your skills for pre-development or renovation work. We do actually have a way where you can provide skills for a membership. So a certain amount of hours goes in and that would get you a membership into the co-op also. So if you have skills that would be helpful for acquiring or renovating a property, you can get in touch with us for that too. We always just like to thank our community partners. We've been working with a lot of people to make sure that we set up a good foundation for this. And so these are some of the partners we've been working with. And then thank you also for your time and your attention. Like I said, if you have more questions, I don't know that we'll have time for it tonight. So feel free to reach out on the website or via email and we'll get back to you.
Very good.
My last presentation was 40 minutes.
So let's see, it's it really, I think people should take you up on the offer to
Yes.
have questions at another time, get in touch with Jessica. If you have burning questions, stay after to ask for them, but thank you for the presentation.
I'll put it in the chat too.
Okay, wonderful.